The collective effort of two German psychologists has created two of the most influential works of psychology in the modern era. In the next century, they were sure that so many inspiring things would spring forth from such knowledge. Ever met one of those people that doesn't know how to contribute to a conversation besides trauma dumping? Their personality is a dump. Every utterance they get a chance to speak is, yeah, I hate when that happens. Almost more than I hate myself. That thing that happened on the news, that was really terrible. Almost as terrible as my life. This is sad, but it can be overwhelming because sitting at the high school lunch table freshman year trying to tolerate a cold turkey sandwich and this conversation, you realize this is too much. I'm not a mental health professional. You need to see a mental health professional. I think I need to see a mental health professional. The collective howl of all those people from all of human existence sounds and feels something like this show. Neon Genesis Evangelion and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. One of the worst things this show did was alter the collective perception of anime itself. When outsiders like me, when I was 15, think of anime, they don't usually think of the cool parts. They usually think of kids in the corner going, "Baka Shinji, ooh." Baka. They usually think of uncomfy feelings derived from oddly sadistic imagery that they were subjected to while accidentally watching one of these movies on Toonami or Cartoon Network after the kids shows stopped airing, and little girls drawn in certain ways. This show has a lot of that. Don't try to defend it. Don't try to defend it. Don't try to defend it. And for some reason, they are also bombarded with the image of millions of little basement-dwelling, inarticulate Ted Kaczynski types ravenously lapping it up like milk leaking from a hamster water thing with a rubber glove over it to make it look like an udder. Yeah, once you've had it, you can't think of anything else. The lasting legacy of the robot show about trauma is a collective trauma on Westerners that Japan and its cartoons are weird. One summer, 4 years ago, while incapacitated by a severe flu, I made the monumentous decision to watch back-to-back this and this. And after 3 days of mouth-breathing delirium, I emerged from my dark room and took my first deep breath from my liberated nostrils and thought, I have been forever changed. I did not know for sure whether what I had watched was real or if I had just dreamt it up in my state of asphyxiated delirium. People either love or hate this show. A lot of people really hate it, and are they right? Yeah, because it's stupid and boring. A lot of people love it, and does that just mean that they're wrong? No. It has good stuff in it. I would say that I like this show. I mean, I like the ideas in this show. No, wait. I like the idea of this. That's not it either. For legal reasons, I enjoy specific ideas found in this show from my personal and neurotypical interpretation of them. Assume that for every video I make from now on. This show makes me feel smart, which makes me feel good, because it takes stylistic risks and can be called avant-garde. This show makes me feel terrible about everything, which makes me feel good. The premise is robots fighting aliens. Mommy and daddy hate the baby and put him in a cooler instead of a crib. He mistook the frozen Hebrew national hot dogs in the cooler as his mommy, and then they put him in a robot, but he still loved his mommy. His mommy is the robot. He's in love with the robot and his clone and this Hitler youth.
Well, you know Hitler was on all kinds of drugs.
He also seeks love from his daddy. Dad, why can't you just treat me like Tom Brady treats his kids? Shut up, Shinji. If the cringe Nene prophecy is true, the fanbase will be torn on their analysis of your incessant whining, and you'll lose all legitimacy as a character. You'll become a meme. You won't be able to defeat Pontius Pilate and his army of Los Angeles angels. No, really, that's what it is. It's a very simple and relatable plot with simple and relatable characters. Relatable if every aspect of your life was a fever dream of an analogy for troubling concepts from these two books, mixed with appropriated themes from this book. Let's read something from this book to get a better idea of what we're dealing with here. Let's go straight to the source. In the primeval forest, there are swarms of monkeys. And here's a map. Yep, that about sums it up. Shinji is relatable because he is a human teenager. Shinji stops being relatable 1 minute into the show when he gets shot at by an alien in a helicopter and is saved by, this character. That didn't happen to me in high school. You quickly find out that he's the son of the head of NERV, a super advanced planetary defense organization tasked with fighting the angels and preventing the third end of the world, as foretold by the American evangelicals' interpretation of the Book of Revelation. Because it already ended twice, I think. The first was when a giant black moon collided with Japan, and the second time was when Adam, the angel, blew up when humans touched him. And the third was when concepts from Jungian Freudian psychology begin to physically manifest after Baka Shinji becomes God, and his mom's sister crush wishes to rid the world of his loneliness. Did you know that Freud was on methamphetamines most of the time he was writing? What I just said, in a lot of ways, explains it better than the actual show does. Every arc in this show is like a 3-game series against the Anaheim Angels. The main characters go in to fight the alien theological beings known as the Angels. The Angels are very overpowered, scary monsters, kicking the shit out of our main characters. Then, inexplicably, in about the 7th inning, the Angels just start to collapse for no reason, and the other team wins. They win a very unsatisfying victory. They win, but it felt like they shouldn't have won. Sir, this is bad. What is it? The IT readings show that we can't keep up with Shohei Ohtani. His curveballs are unhittable. His fastballs are invisible. He's gonna shut us out. We can't hit anything. He keeps hitting home runs. That's impossible. An angel shouldn't be able to attack and defend. I guess this is the end. What is it? Another reading is coming in. They're taking him out. A random bullpen guy. This is our chance. Light him up, boys. They then cry and wet themselves. And then they repeat this over again in another city. Oh, and did I mention that all of this is boring and repetitive and drags on? It's a mech show, but the mech fights are lame. And yeah, they're cool parts, but overall, I was really bored. I only got through some of the episodes because I blacked out from a lack of oxygen from my aforementioned flu. And this allowed me to skip portions where the characters just talked in circles and nothing happened. And I'm just sitting there at the lunch table watching with a dry turkey sandwich slowly moving down my esophagus. The only reason I could put together a decipherable thing about what happened at the end of the show was because I had read these and this, and I'd studied this. And I tend to really like stuff that's nonsensical and symbolic and avant-garde. But even I was still a bit confused, and I don't really want to watch it again because the show doesn't explain details that it owes to the audience. Things being left up to interpretation and being vague is fine. It's a valuable storytelling technique, but leaving out necessary information is just frustrating. The ending is an extended light show explosion of all of its collective themes and whatever crammed into a movie and an episode, and it's supposed to resemble the internal and external things happening to Shinji, and I think the creator of the show while making it, I'll get to that later. You know, isn't that all art is? It's a share in the self-destruction of the mind represented in a moment of beauty. And I kind of like that. I like crazy symbolism because it looks pretty. And if you haven't already noticed, it allows me to come to any conclusion and say anything that I want about said topic, which feels good and cathartic. Sometimes, you know, it's just fun to throw your hands in the air and say, what the hell am I watching? That was what the finale was like. It was as if everything Jordan Peterson had ever tweeted and uploaded to YouTube was pumped into your brain by an EpiPen jammed in your forehead. That's the only time in the entire 20-something episodes that I felt like that, because the finale finally started presenting some of the challenging themes in a very interesting way and was animated spectacularly, but then it just ended. The rest that you have to trudge through is confusing and dull. Let's talk about why this might have happened. Like many of us, the characters of this show and the show itself had parental troubles, which explains its unpredictability. Very fittingly, like all the best works of art, this show had production hell. Its father was a severely depressed Japanese man, and its mother was this severely depressed looking Japanese building. It faced scheduling and staffing problems, and apparently more than halfway through airing, father changed the main plot from something boring and normal about human salvation or something to, why don't I just psychoanalyze the main characters? Because he was given a psychology book about mental illness from a friend and thought that it was more interesting. Somehow he created one of the most influential anime, one of the most influential shows of all time, and according to some, one of the most intellectually stimulating works of fiction of all time. Now, is that true? Is it actually that smart? The quick answer is sure, if you have enough to say about it. You can say whatever you want, like I'm going to in the next 6 minutes. I was gonna use this section to try to sound really smart, but I realized it didn't at all. I mean, I get it. Nothing like this had ever been made before, and it was a trailblazer of sorts. It was what you call a cultural phenomenon. For all the wrong reasons. It had a lot of things to say, but I don't think anyone listened to him, and I think it was pretty sloppy. It was very psychological, so this makes it focus on the human brain and the characters in it that possess a human brain. Most of the themes are driven by these characters. The fun and wholesome cast of wonderful characters. There's a German girl, a burned out 30-year-old girl, a blue girl, and this guy. And Shinji is in love with all of them. And the only one he doesn't love is himself. The characters are not relatable because they're realistic. They are not realistic. They are relatable because they are expressions of ambiguously interpreted Western psychological concepts anthropomorphized into cute little cartoon characters. I found that most of them were very annoying and useless, but also very sad, and that sad part was the most useful thing about them. They have realistic problems, but the way that they depict and solve those problems are very confusing and not realistic. It kind of just comes down to everyone admitting that they're traumatized and they're stupid and they hate themselves, but that's it. The characters seem to, or something resembling the characters, seem to come to these realizations about themselves, and then they die, or they turn into orange juice. Shinji's the only one who doesn't melt. He's sort of a steel man for living a regular life. Everyone always says that Shinji is a little crybaby, whiny bitch the whole time, and he is. He could have had some more three-dimensional character traits besides crying. If I were him, I would have cried a lot. I already do. Oh my gosh, there's an elephant in the room, and it looks like Oedipus. Someone better address that. Remember my legal disclaimer at the beginning. So all these characters in Shinji come to the realization that they are missing love from their parents. It's not that you're in love with your mom. It's that you long for a love that is all-encompassing. Something similar to a baby's dependent state on their mother when they're in the womb. When everyone turns into goo, it shows that more often than not, people would be willing to give up a normal human life in order to exist in some passive state of infinite bliss. And Shinji is like, no, I will not surrender my individuality, my humanity. I will live my life. I will not lock myself in my room, and I will not distract myself with shows like this. Okay, maybe not that last one. He's the ultimate Sigma male. He makes the rejection that every other protagonist does, but on an ontological level. He's stronger than Guts. No. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I think that where the show falls short is giving the audience any realistic depiction of solutions to these problems. There are no psychologically healthy role models in this show. There is Shinji's good choice, but that good choice to live a human life is immediately usurped by the fact that both he and Asuka hurt each other immediately. It affirms this notion that no matter how hard you try, human relationships will return to suffering, which is true, but it's also not the whole picture. It's kind of the perspective of someone who might have just, for the first time, came to these realizations because, let's say, their friend lent them a psychology book about mental illness, and he happened to be making a television show that was in desperate need of thematic and story restructuring. Every time you come to a realization about this, you're not healed. You don't just get an audience clapping congratulations and everything is fine. This show's problem is that all it is its trauma, and you, a human, are more than your trauma. You have to continually come to that same conclusion over and over again the rest of your life and actively try to do things in the future that don't make it worse. Because you'll never be healed, but in the times that you are reminded of your trauma and you're brought back into that place, you'll look at your wounds and be like, oh, whatever, I can handle that. The ending is reminiscent of that child at the lunch table who can't talk about anything but their trauma. They're on the right path, but a future where they're mostly healed is one where they're sitting at that same table, smiling and talking about something else. Because there's a lot more to see in life than the suffering. Especially the boy across from you, choking on his turkey sandwich. Someone help him! Call an adult, please! I might as well take a few seconds to say that I like Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud, but if you're interested in this topic on a more practical level, I recommend reading these two books. They're a little intense, but I think they're very insightful. This show is a cultural phenomenon for the wrong reasons. I think that even though there are lots of the fan base that value some of the more positive messages from this show and have grown into stronger emotional individuals, I really hope that's the case. I want you to be happy. Though this might be the case, I also think that this show has just become a good vessel to sell more merchandise having to do with big robots and big red flags. The cultural result of the show seems to be a glorification of the aspects that it rejects. It has created an army of dungeon-dwelling goblins who sip medical marijuana-laced tang from Dave & Buster's mugs, endlessly being at the mercy of the pleasure-farming corporations controlling what you see on the internet, never taking any real steps towards self-liberation. And if you're one of those people, let me ask you something. Is that what Goku would have done? Guts? Naruto? Thorfinn? Is that what Shinji would have done? You baka. I'm gonna say that I like this show. I was originally going to say that I don't know how to feel because it took me 30 pages of notes and a 4-year psych degree to interpret. But I'm an adult. I've explored all of my feelings, and I don't know if I can really call that good because the truth is often simple, much more simple than you'd think. But on the other hand, the truth can only be simple once you've worked through and made sense of the often complicated mess of a human life. Sometimes it requires trauma and mistakes with women. So in a way, maybe this show and all of its weirdness gave us, our younger selves, what we needed to go through so that we could grow out of our real problems, right? No, what am I saying? At best, it's like a nightmare. Those dreams that is a part of your brain trying to tell you something about yourself, a secret warning, a cry for help. And in that nightmare, we only saw the potential for body pillows and more self-isolation and mass escapism. Neon Genesis Evangelion and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. They have greatly increased the life expectancy of those who live in more advanced countries, but they have destabilized society, made life unfulfilling, have subjected human beings to indignities, have led to widespread psychological suffering, and have inflicted severe damage on the natural world. The continued development of technology will worsen the situation. It will certainly subject human beings to greater indignities and inflict greater damage on the natural world.
Oh, he got another one! Get going!